भाइयों और बहनों नमस्कार. I thank you very much for being very, very patient. A delight to see all of you. Imam Siddiqui Saab, a special welcome. Thank you very much. I think you've been a fantastic person. You came as a participant, but I think you've done far more than that. My name is Vijay Batra. You've seen some of the video clippings, I guess. And I'm very, very sorry that I'm late. I was thinking, the program is good to great, and the way I'm coming is becoming good to bad. But I'm here. A very brief introduction about myself. As you can see, I have a very Punjabi accent, but I don't look Punjabi from any angle. And the reason is because many, many years back, my father went to the US to study, and he had gone from Punjab. And that's where he met my mother, who had come to study from Japan. So I'm the first successful Indo-Japanese joint venture that took place in '62, and I'm 51, and I'm still going strong. Whereas other joint ventures, obviously, be it Maruti, Suzuki, or Hero Honda, they come and go. And I intend to be here for, inshallah, 50 more years. And I really respect your patience for being here. The topic today is good to great. We've taken this topic from the book written by Jim Collins. Jim Collins is an amazing author. He's written some amazing books like Built to Last and Good to Great. And obviously, Good to Great will conduct the session that we have today in more of an Indian colloquial manner, so you and I can start to understand the very concept of what good to great is. In fact, Jim Collins says that good is the enemy of great. Good is the enemy of, because the moment you become good, you have done quite a bit to become good, but then being great requires a different kind of a mindset, different skill sets. And you have to unlearn what you have learned while you were becoming good in order for you to start to learn how to become great. And I'm 51, I've done some bit of reading, not as much when I was young, but as you grow older and you get married and you have kids, you've got to start learning somehow. Thanks. Whatever reading I've done over the years, you keep on building incremental understanding to what you have known. Life is all about understanding and implementing what you understand. Knowledge is the first step. Then you understand, and then ultimately you're able to implement what you have understood and known. And like I said, you learn many things to become good. And then you have to start unlearning what you've learned to become good in order to start learning what you have become great. And I've read in many books that maturity is when you are able to learn and unlearn. Believe me, learning is not as challenging as unlearning. Because from a very young age, all you and I do is learn, is it not? How often do we unlearn something? Unlearn is a very, very different kind of a skill set. Now, in my case, I was conceived by my parents in the US. I was born in Japan. The first 5 years I lived in Japan. At the age of 5, in 1967, I came to India, and my mother came, my grandmother, my Nani ji came, and then for reasons which were very, very challenging, my grandmother Nani had to go back to Japan, and my mother followed, and she never got married again. And my father again married to a Punjabi lady, so I've had two mothers in my life. And believe me, you grew up first 7 years of your life learning how to get along with your first mother, right? And then all of a sudden you realize that the first mother with whom you've built up a good rapport is no more there, and now you've got to start learning how to do with the second mother. And unlearning what you've learned with the first mother is very challenging. How can you? Now, in fact, for the first 5 or 6, 7 years of my life, all I spoke was Japanese. All I spoke was Japanese. Now, if I were to ask you a question, most of you guys obviously are from India. So if you've grown up learning Hindi, can you unlearn Hindi? It'll take you a whole lot longer than it took you to learn Hindi, is it not? It takes a good 3 or 4 years to learn Hindi. By the time a kid is 3 or 4, he or she speaks good Hindi, is it not? Yes or no? After that, the learning is incremental. But for that child to unlearn Hindi will take 15, 20 years, which it took me, by the way, because then my mother went back and we never could be in touch for a while. So it took me that many years of 15, 17 years of not speaking or being around people who speak Japanese to unlearn Japanese. And some of the words in Hindi and Punjabi that I picked up, probably I had no need to. And unlearning that is quite a challenge. All of you guys who are familiar with Delhi, हम मम्मी दीदी बहुत करते हैं एक दूसरे की इज्जत, right? And that was a challenge. Even now that's a challenge. In fact, my kids keep telling me that, Papa, you've grown up, slow down. So like I said, learning is relatively easier and unlearning is much more challenging. Now for most of us, who are good, we see why should we become great? Good is good enough, is it not? To unlearn what made me good and to start a new journey of learning how to become great is extremely dangerous. Would you agree? Like they say, greatness exists at the brink of destruction. Greatness exists at the brink of, you destroy the good in you before you can embark the journey on being great. Many people actually have had a challenge. And believe me, a session like this, Good to Great, is just a trigger point for you to realize the dimensions of being great. I grew up in India in the late 60s, early 70s, and then 80s and 90s, maybe 80s, I guess, then I moved on to the US. And when I was young, 9 or 10 years old, the good actor that we would all look up to would be Rajesh Khanna. And Anand, 1971, the movie came. Some of you may have seen that movie a few times. Rajesh Khanna was almost at the brink of greatness, is it not? And then came Amitabh Bachchan from somewhere. And by the time it was 1973, Namak Haram came, Rajesh Khanna knew he can become great, but for some reason he was more comfortable being good that he was earlier than Amitabh Bachchan, right? And guess what? Now you don't consider Rajesh Khanna to be a great actor. Is it not sad as it is? But you would still consider Amitabh Bachchan as a great actor. Not if you ask Pepsi, but if you ask others, right? And Amitabh Bachchan has seen the destruction or the brink of destruction, is it not? The 90s, the ABCL fiasco, started coming on Kaun Banega Crorepati, the small screen. People said, क्या दिन आ गए बेचारे के छोटे पर्दे पे आ गए. पर now I'm sure इमाम सिद्दीकी साहब will say कि छोटे पर्दे में जो बड़कपन है वो बड़े पर्दों में नहीं है, right? And Amitabh Bachchan has obviously morphed from being a good to a great actor. Now obviously I'm not saying that you and I cannot become great. We can become great, but then you and I have to start unlearning certain things that we have learned that made you and I good. तो आज का पहला सवाल आप सब के लिए, कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ, I'm sorry? Yes, that is what we learned when we were growing up to become good. Mummy, Papa said, भैया अभी मत बाहर जाके खेलो, right? कुछ कर लो. But if you and I want to become great, we'll have to unlearn that dictum and start to learn, कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ करना होगा. कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ करना होगा. खोने के दिन गए, क्यों जी? But to become great, you and I need to become very clear that you and I have to do certain things. Acha, I see many youngsters who talk about the importance of smart work. I say that's all nonsense. There's no such thing as smart work because work has to be smart. दीवार को आप धक्का मारी जाओ, दीवार वहीं खड़ी है, आपको जो मैंने 12 घंटे दीवार को धक्का मारा है तो वर्क तो जीरो किया. तो वर्क हैज टू बी स्मार्ट. सो यू डोंट क्वालिफाई समथिंग बाय सेइंग स्मार्ट वर्क. हार्ड वर्क होता है. हार्ड वर्क क्या होता है? जरूरी काम जो आपको करना चाहिए और आपको करने का दिल नहीं कर रहा, उसको उस टाइम पे करना, उसको क्या कहेंगे? हार्ड वर्क. क्योंकि वर्क हैज टू बी स्मार्ट. So if you and I want to become great, you and I will have to do a lot of hard work. There will be moments when you don't feel like doing it because you're tired, you're fatigued, you're beaten up, but still you got to get up and move on. And that is hard work. And the harder you work, easier life becomes. And the easier you work, harder life becomes.